Kelly told me that his daughter, Shelby, wanted to hike Picacho Peak. We'd all done this hike previously, and then the gift shop was closed. And now it was opened, and Kelly had promised her a shirt, Picacho Peak. I conquered the cables. So, there we are, on our trail, hiking up the east side of the mountain, where the last time we'd hiked from the west side and come up Sunset Trail. Either trail will take you to the top, and you get cables either way. It was interesting to see these snail shells where you're looking down at the tops of saguaro cactus. Off in a distance you see the peaks, and you can even see off to the highway. It wasn't as scenic as last time when we did it in the spring and all the flowers were in bloom, but it's still a cool hike, and the cables and the uphill make it a bit of a challenge. It's great to take a little break in some of these rock outcroppings and just looking across the vistas over at the other peaks, parking lot, the highway. I've got Kelly and Shelby pretty well trained. Thumbs up, now put your arms out. And then when Shelby and I are ready for a break, we say, Kelly, I think there's a cave up there. So up he goes, climbing up the side of the cliff, looking for the cave, while we sit back and relax. Kelly continues to climb up the side of the mountain till he gets out of sight. Then he yells down, "There's no cave up here." So back he comes. The mountain was blocking the sun, so we had a nice hike in the shade. Shelby stopped to hold up this rock. Kelly took a picture, so I had to take a picture. Eventually you get to the saddle.
It's Kelly Paul hiking up,
Made it to this spot.
along with his daughter Shelby.
The honorary old man.
We don't call her that.
Take one.
Old guys hike at the saddle of Picacho Peak, about 2960 feet. I'm taking speaking lessons from Jerry right now.
And you're doing good.
And Picacho Peak rises 1,500 feet from the desert floor. And if you wonder why we know all this great information, it's right there!
Picacho Peak was dedicated as a state park in 1968, and I'm gone. That's it. My radio voice. How'd it go?
It was windy at the saddle, so the sound wasn't great, but we relaxed a little while before we start the cables down and around the edge of the mountain so that we can start the climb up the highest peak. Some areas of the trail are fairly steep, but there are cables and stairs to assist.
Better.
That's Kelly going down, followed by his daughter Shelby. He's gonna crash, take him out.
Cheerio.
We can kill two Pauls with one.
One ball. Hey, you can kill two calls with one ball.
It was fortunate for a couple reasons that they didn't fall. One, Kelly had his keys in the backpack, and I wouldn't have wanted to have to climb down the cliff to retrieve them. And two, I don't know, I just wouldn't want to have to tell Rachel what happened. All I can say is, hike carefully, hang on to the cable, when you need to back down, that's oftentimes easier than going straight down. And if you're careful, this hike actually isn't all that bad. The worst part is that it's just straight uphill, and then coming back is all downhill. But from the saddle, you go down a ways to get around part of the peak before you can start climbing back up the higher peak. Kelly's saying something that fortunately I spared you from.
We've gone through the cables coming down from the saddle. Now we're heading up to the top of Picacho Peak. And there'll be more cables. Hey, smile, look this way. Kelly's back there somewhere. There he is.
All right. I'm holding Jerry's camera. That gives me a lot of things I could do. I could put a finger over the lens. I
can't be held accountable.
But I won't. That's Shelby in the lead. There's Jerry. And we are coming up to the end of the cables at Picacho Peak. And there's people waiting, so I better get going. All right, that's the end of this video, Jerry. It's over. How do I stop it?
You'd think by now he'd know how to push a button to stop the video. Later on in the day, we actually showed him how to use his credit card at the gas station. So Kelly is advancing. Look, he took these pictures without putting his thumb over it. Or maybe it was Shelby I had take those pictures. There were still more cables to come, and I'd already sustained a little damage. Minor cut, probably hit it on a rock climbing the cables. We're on the home stretch now, just a few more cables to go up. And once you get up that, then you can see a view of the other peak at Picacho Peak. And there's no more cables, but you still have a bit of a climb to get to the peak at the top of the mountain.
At the peak, the summit, Kelly Paul
Ready to break out?
taking off his backpack. This is the view around. Shelby's alive and well, smiling, a kind of facetious smile. But that's the view. There's the other peak. It looks high when you're down low, but from this angle it doesn't look so high. You can see the freeway in a distance. And my favorite, the Dairy Queen, where I always stop on my way to Tucson. And then all these fields out there. There's Shelby looking off across the world, contemplating life. And here's Kelly giving the thumbs up as he takes a nap.
Kelly and Shelby had a little snack. They must have been checking their phone messages. And then it was time for the hike down. The cables climbing down are just as much fun as when you're climbing up. One slip and it's a long way down. So again, let's not have a slip. As you cross the planks, glide down the rocks, and hang on to the cable. I guess I could also mention that it's recommended that you wear gloves. Unfortunately, I forgot about that recommendation, so I had no gloves. But really, the cable wasn't that bad. Even though some areas are fairly steep, you're just scrambling up rocks and the cable just gives you some stability as you go down. So even though I forgot the gloves, it still wasn't that big of a deal. But I still don't like going uphill. Once you get down the first part, then it's around the ridge, and then back up to the saddle, and then the final descent down. It's kind of cool to look back at the mountain and see people climbing down the cables that you just came through. And then you come to the sign, and we're on the Hunter Trail this time, so it's back up the hill to the saddle. I kind of consider the saddle about the halfway point. So if you come up Hunter Trail and you get to the saddle, you're halfway to the peak. If you come up Sunset Trail, you'll never reach the saddle unless you bypass the peak and just go to the saddle. Did that make sense? All I know is we've hiked to the peak from both sides of the mountain, and we've actually hiked to the two highest peaks, the Picacho Peak. So, I guess in essence, we've pretty much done all the hiking on Picacho Peak we need to do. At least that's my position. For Kelly, yeah, we could come back soon. It's not a bad hike. He's already forgotten the cables. Of course, the thing Kelly found most interesting about the whole hike was this beehive. He was fascinated by it and would return just for that. Shelby and Kelly had their souvenir. I got lunch, and we're happy.